Hi everyone, it's Mark here again. I'm the founder of the Arts and Culture Network. We're a growing global community of over 180,000 now, which is very exciting across our 8 arts and culture LinkedIn groups. You'll find links wherever this appears if you'd like to learn more. Now, it's not every day that I get to interview someone who's got their own dedicated Wikipedia page, which I was extremely impressed by. John Deery has joined me today. John is one of our full members, joined recently. We accidentally bumped into each other a few weeks ago, not realizing that we had, which was hilarious. John, thank you so much for joining me for this today.
Pleasure. Pleasure, Mark. Thank you for inviting me.
It's my pleasure. We're going to have some fun. I'm going to create your fantasy cultural year from the answers to some easy questions to which there are no wrong answers, which is always the best kind of interview, I think. But before I do that, I wonder if you'd be kind enough to say hi to everybody and tell us a little bit about the work that you're doing.
Yeah, thanks very much. Well, it's been a great honor to join your network. It's fantastic. It's very impressed with the organization, yourself, the way that you've put this together. So it's an amazing thing. So anybody else who's just joined or is thinking about joining, please do, because it's a wonderful organization. So that's the first thing to say. Second thing is that I started and run a company called the Public Speaking Course, and it does what it says on the tin. It helps people to be able to stand up and speak in public. And we know from research at places like Cambridge and Stanford, we know at least 75% of people, it's their biggest fear, standing up and speaking in front of people. And I've worked with people right across the board from all sorts of professions, backgrounds, ethnicities, different parts of the world. And it's the same thing as well. So it's a very common fear. Personally, I think it's more than 75% of people because I get a lot of emails and a lot of calls from people, and I've heard it all before over and over again, the anxiety that people feel when they stand up and speak. So I work with individuals, I work with businesses, people that you know, and people that your viewers and listeners to this will also know. You'd be surprised, sometimes you see people and you think, oh, there's no way he or she is frightened of public speaking. But underneath that calm exterior or relatively calm exterior, there's anxiety going on. So I've seen and heard it all before. And basically, I help people to stand up either in person, which is usually the biggest fear, or online or on Teams, Zoom, Google Meet. To an extent, people can hide behind the technology because they're not in the room. But there always comes a moment in people's careers, most people anyway, where they have to go and pitch to a company or they have to go and ask for money if they're a startup, for instance, and it's eyeballs in front of people, and that's the biggest fear. So I help them to break through that fear and to be able to communicate.
Sounds great. And of course, being a best man and giving a speech, that's a, yeah, absolutely. Well, I think that's great. But I know that that work is ongoing and successful, but I couldn't help noticing some of the your achievements from the Wikipedia page that I browsed through. And um, after we first met, I watched Conspiracy of Silence, your movie. Could you give us a quick snapshot of the experience you have in the film world and TV?
Yeah, well, I originally, many years ago, I went to drama school. I started out as an actor. I was at the drama studio in London, and when I left the drama studio, I did lots of rep, which is local theatre, Belfast, Liverpool, York Theatre Royal, etc. And I toured around the country in theatre, and then I then decided that I think I would like to go to film school. I mean, actually, it was a girlfriend of mine, to be honest, who said to me, she said, "Look, you'd be really good. You're a very good actor. You can work with actors." And she said, "Why don't you apply to National Film and Television School?" And I thought, no, it's not for me. I'll continue being an actor. But in between acting jobs, somebody I was at drama school with, her boyfriend was a runner on commercials and these were big commercials with big commercial directors, and they needed another runner for a particularly big commercial that was happening. And she called me. I wasn't working at the time. I was in between acting jobs, and she said, "Look, why don't you my boyfriend, they're looking for somebody. Why don't you give them a call and go and see them? So basically, cut long story short, I went along, I met the producer, met the production manager who was there, and they offered me this job as a runner. I didn't really know what a runner did, but I suddenly found myself on commercials with very big directors, both UK directors and US directors. And it just went from there, really. I observed everything on set, and I worked as a runner in between acting jobs for about 18 months, maybe 2 years. So I'd go off and do theatre show for 3 or 4 months, for 5 months, whatever it was, come back. I would get in touch with the people I met in production and they would hire me. I might not be working for a month or whatever in theatre. So that's what I did. And then this thought of film school kept going through my head. So I applied to the National Film and Television School. It was a short course unit for people who'd worked in the business, either as an actor or behind the camera. And by then I had quite a lot of experience behind the camera, and I looked at all the departments that were there. And I went along. They only took 4 people per year. I got accepted, which was great. I made a short film, which ended up on Channel 4, chosen from several thousand, I believe, films. And that's how I started. So I wrote and directed a short 5-minute piece. And that's how my career as a director began. And I progressed through that. I then wrote a script, which was the movie you referred to, Conspiracy of Silence. It was picked up by Sundance. I went to the Sundance Screenwriters Lab, so I can say, I don't even know if it says that on Wikipedia actually, but I can say I'm a fellow of the Sundance Screenwriters Lab. And I flew to Utah, and it was an amazing experience. I worked with some big Hollywood writers. They assessed the script prior to me going to Sundance, of course, and they liked the script very much. And I worked solidly with these writers, and they gave me various suggestions and tips and skills and various things. And they were highly experienced. There were some really good people there. And that was a great eye opener because I learned about not just writing, but also the key to a great script is rewriting. And it's rewriting. There came a moment when I was able to let go of that wonderful scene that I'd written, which was fantastic. I thought was great because it didn't work in the script, and that was a great lesson as well. So I went on. We finally got that film financed. It got me noticed. I got fantastic reviews and awards for it. I worked with some fantastic people. I gave Chris O'Dowd, the Irish actor, his first break. I worked with Hugh Bonneville. I worked with John Lynch, who's a wonderful Irish actor. I worked with Brenda Fricker, who was an Oscar-winning actor, and she's brilliant, Brenda. The film was set in Ireland. It looked at celibacy, it questioned celibacy within the Catholic Church, and it was based sorry, not based on, I'm not going to say based, in case there's a lawyer listening. It was inspired by real events and not based on real events. But it's stories from priests that I've met, people I interviewed in Italy, in the UK, and in Ireland. So it's well worth watching. It still stands up. I think the Catholic Church has not really looked at the issue of celibacy within the Catholic Church. Although personally, I know a lot of people in the Catholic Church, priests and higher up, and they think that celibacy should be looked at. But that's for another day, I think. So I
Yeah.
started off, I did that. I went on and then directed some big television shows, Fat Friends. I directed the first 90-minute Christmas special of Fat Friends for Kay Mellor. I worked with James Corden, Ruth Jones, other people, and it was great. I did other dramas for ITV and co-created and executive produced successful children's animation series called Underground Ernie, which became #1 on CBeebies between 2006 2008.
Gary
And then,
Lineker, wasn't it? Gary Lineker.
yeah, we
Yeah.
chose Gary Lineker as the voice of Underground Ernie, and he
Yeah.
was terrific. Gary was really good. He's the perfect voice for that. So I've done lots of things. Then I develop projects as well. So I've got 5 or 6 projects that I've developed, but it takes a long, long time to develop a film project where you get it to the point of getting it financed. So that takes a long time. But also I've had a passion all along as well for communication because I made lots of films for big companies, like for instance PwC, other very large organizations like that, Lever Brothers, the Post Office. I made corporate films for them, so they might have wanted a 5 minute film summing up who they were, what they were, or a 20-minute film, or indeed a half-hour film. So I did that, and I found a lot of people were very good at what they did, but they were unable to communicate. And I was asked by BT to put together something where I could help the technical people who were really good technically, but they found it difficult when they stood in front of 200 people trying to talk about the technology that they had. So I designed a program for them, and that's really how the public speaking course came about. And then lots of people said, look, would you come along and run a workshop for our people? So that's what happens. So the public speaking course, I can go along, I can do an hour overview of how to communicate in public, or a 90-minute masterclass, for instance, or a webinar. But really, working with people in small groups, which would usually be 8 or a maximum of 10 for a day, really gets to the heart of it for people. So we start at 9:30 in the morning, finish at 5:30, and at the end of the day, I give people the tips and skills that they need to be able to stand up and break through their own personal fear of speaking in public. And it's different for everyone. So it works very well. The course works very well, and I get very good reviews for that. So I would say that the public speaking course, I'm equally as passionate about the public speaking course, about helping people to communicate, as I am about filmmaking. Because if you think about it, we all have to communicate. And nowadays, in particular, since the pandemic, lots of people are hiding behind this. They don't want to speak. I get loads of emails through. There's no number at the bottom. There used to be a switchboard number. There might be a direct line and a mobile number. No, people want to communicate, on messaging on WhatsApp or on Instagram or email, and not communicate. But in the end, we have to communicate, whether that be personally to the people we live with, our loved ones, our family, or in business. So for me, it's something that I'm very keen that people communicate. And also, I'll just finish on this. We know that there are so many young people between the ages of 18 and 24 who are not in full-time education, who are not employed, who are frightened of going even for an interview, whether that's an interview online or in person, and in particular in person, because they can't communicate. And I want to be able to help that demographic as well. So it affects the bottom line for businesses and for people who own and run companies. So for me, it's a personal journey I'm on to help people communicate better. Of course, I get paid for it, but it really changes the individual, and that's borne out by the reviews I get on Trustpilot. The public speaking course gets on Trustpilot. So they're my two strands, if you like, in life: filmmaking, writing, directing, producing, and coaching people how to communicate.
Well, I think that's wonderful work to be doing, because it's only just occurred to me speaking to you now that the art of communication is key to whatever you're doing, because there is a parallel here. I have several conversations with visual artists who say, look, I'm an artist, I'm not a marketer."
Mm.
And there's a disconnect between some of the things that they need to do effectively in order to have their work be recognized and acquired. Same is true for communicating and speaking in public in those circumstances. For example, if you were rather a shy and retiring visual artist, and you take a stall at an art show, okay,
Mm.
you've got to speak to your guests, and you've got to communicate with them in a way that makes them warm to you and want to share some of that work. So I think that's wonderful work to be doing, and and you will have been in the hot seat pitching for finance yourself, so you know exactly what that kind of pressure feels like. So wonderful. Thank you very much, John, for giving us that rundown. So if you're watching this and you're somewhat reticent about your capacity to communicate effectively in public or in those circumstances, John is your man. There we go. Excellent. Now, you've just inspired my idea for your fantasy cultural year. So, this is where I'm going to take you on a global trip. Okay. Fantasy, unfortunately, although people have suggested I set up a travel agency to facilitate these in the past. So, I have a magic wand at hand and I have a time machine for this, both of which are working. Now I need to place you somewhere in the world, so I'm going to. It's easier if you just whatever comes to mind first is generally good. I need to place you somewhere in the world, John. So, what's your favorite building?
My favorite, wow. Well, that's a very interesting question because immediately there are so many buildings that come to mind. I mean, our great universities, Cambridge, Oxford, there's some wonderful buildings there.
Mm,
Wren Library, the Sydney Opera House. I mean, I've been there, by the way. It's an incredible building. But I think if I could probably pick one place. Now, this is going to tie in actually with a movie I'm making. And it might sound like it's an odd thing or an odd place to pick, given what's going on in the world and what has gone on in the world. But I would pick Jerusalem. And there are some incredible buildings in Jerusalem. Now, I'm not Jewish. I come from a Christian background. My parents were both Irish. My grandparents were Irish. So I come from an Irish Catholic background, so a Christian background. And I went to Jerusalem several years ago because I was working on a project, which I'm still working on actually. And it's a film that's set there in modern day Jerusalem, contemporary Jerusalem. And I would pick a building in Jerusalem. I spent 12 days there in the old city. I walked around every day. And of course, you see everybody there. You've got the Jewish quarter, you've got the Christian quarter, you've got the Arab Muslim quarter. It's an incredible place. So it would be a building in Jerusalem, I think, and maybe given that I come from the Christian background, it might be the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, which is an incredible building. In fact, I went to all three holy sites there, and I found it very moving. And one of the things that really touched me was this such incredible history there. Yet the world, not we, but people in the world are in conflict. And that seems such a shame to me. So a fantasy building or a fantasy place would be for me to go to somewhere like Jerusalem, where the great three Abrahamic religions can come together and see each other for what they are, which is human beings. And I know there's been terrible conflict in that region for a long, long time, way before October the 7th, in fact, way before the formation of the State of Israel. And and I think that would be a wonderful thing to somehow bring people together in that area, in that community, at the heart, in the heart of Jerusalem, and let them see the world through different eyes. So that would be a wonderful thing for me to do. In fact, that's what the movie I'm making, I'm going to be directing it. One of the producers and I have developed it with a lovely American writer. And we are in the process of trying to get that film financed. And that film looks at the conflict through the eyes of three young boys. They're 7, 8 years old, an Israeli Jewish boy, an Arab boy, Muslim boy who lives in Jerusalem, and an Arab Christian boy as well. And they come together as friends through football. So it's a beautiful film that does not take sides in the conflict, does not shy away from it, does not sugarcoat it. But that would be my fantasy place to go to help to bring some form of settlement or understanding between the three Abrahamic religions.
Love that. I've been there as well to the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. I organized an arts festival in Tel Aviv for a few years, and I visited, and yeah, isn't it somewhat odd that three religions can share one church, but they can't share the rest of the planet?
Yeah.
It's because there are those quarters and those areas are reflected inside the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, I think. So it's incredible. Excellent. Okay, so we're going to be at the Church of the Holy Sepulchre in Jerusalem. Now, I'd like you to imagine you're sitting within sight of the church. It's a beautiful June summer evening. It's 6 o'clock, and you're in a cafe, a curbside cafe, and there's a drink on the table next to you. What would we find there, John?
Typically you would find a tea.
Any
I don't drink coffee. I
coffee?
don't drink coffee. Yeah, I've had about 6 cups of coffee in my life, and I don't. So I don't drink it. So a tea. I try and get a tea.
Okay. Builder's tea or fruit tea or
Absolutely builder's tea. I've been through the Lapsang Souchong. I've been through the peppermint. I've been through the chamomile, and I'm back now to builder's tea, PG tips, Thai food
PG
tea,
tea.
British rail, whatever we would call it, ordinary tea
Four
with
sugar, with
with
four sugars.
semi-skimmed milk if I could get it in
Yes,
Jerusalem.
semi-skilled milk and four sugars probably.
No sugars in my case, but
Oh, okay, excellent. Now there's a book on the table next to you as well. What would we find there?
oh, I love books, by the way. I grew up in a household where there were no books, and now my house is full of books. Um, I mean, I want to say some, classic book, Anna Karenina, or some book that's, The Hobbit, Lord of the Rings, which I loved when I was a kid. Um, I think if there was one book on there, I mean, I read a lot about politics, religion, history, but I think a book that I would have in front of me that has had an amazing effect on me is the Eckhart Tolle book, The Power of Now. Now, he's also written another one called A New Earth, which is like not quite a follow-up to The Power of Now, but it's got everything in it the Power of Now has got. And often I recommend that to people. And the reason I say that is because when I think of the Power of Now and the principles behind that, which Eckhart has modernized, for want of a better word. He was very successful with that book, and everybody knows him. Lots of people know him now in the world. Um, he's talking about being in the moment. And being in the moment is really important because I meet, and you will as well, Mark, I'm sure. And in fact, the people watching this, you will meet lots of people who are not present. They may be physically in front of you, but they're not really present. And in their mind, they're thinking about something that happened in the past, what he did to me, what she did to me, what they did to me, or they're projecting into the future, or what's it going to be like next Thursday when I have to stand up in front of those 200 people and do my presentation. They're living in that moment, or they're living in that wedding that they don't really want to go to next May, or they're living in somewhere else in the future. And it prevents people from being present. Now, I think being present is a tremendous gift that we can give people. Just being there. And it's not present in a weird way. It's not sort of eyeballing them. And it's hearing them. It's hearing them and being really with somebody in that moment. And of course, I'm guilty of not being present as well. We all are, but I'm much more aware of it now. So I can come back to the moment because if you think about it, The future is only a thought in our head. The future is not, there is no such thing as the future. Now, you can plan for the future, of course. I had to plan to be here today to do this with you. If you're going on holiday, you have to make sure that you got your passport is valid. You have to get on the internet and book your flight. You have to get to the airport. We can plan for the future, but when we live in it, it stops us being living in the present, living in this moment.
And
And
that
that
book
for
was
me
the
is a
inspiration.
fantastic, yeah, and that is the most important thing. When you're present, and as a father of two boys, they're both grown up now, they're in the mid-20s. But when you read a book, you're reading a kid's book at night. If you're exhausted, and I've been in that situation, I've been working all day filming and come back, and I'm really tired, and I've got to get up very early the next morning, and I'm reading the kid's book, and I remember once one of my boys said, "Dad, concentrate," because they could feel that I just wasn't there.
Mhm.
Uh, and most of the time I was, because I wanted to be there to actually read the book. But a lot of people that we meet, we just you're in a meeting with, or you're at a party or something, they are looking elsewhere. Oh, I must talk to her. Oh yeah, he's over there, and they're just nodding perfunctorily to you, and they're not really there. So it's not being present in a sort of weird way or anything. It's just it's listening to somebody, but it's also hearing them as
Mm.
well. So
Mm.
that book, The Power of Now, or A New Earth by Eckhart Tolle, has always been a companion of mine. It reminds me that I need to be present in whatever I'm doing. When I'm directing a movie, I'm absolutely present. When I'm working with people for the public speaking course, I'm absolutely present, getting the best from them and really allowing them to be themselves. None of us are perfect. I'm not perfect. I've made some great decisions in my life, and I've made some not so great decisions in my life. And you have to deal with that as you go along and just get through life as best we can. So that would be the book that would be sat, me in a little cafe in the heart
Yeah.
of Jerusalem. That would be the book with a nice cup of tea.
And to complete that picture, you've got headphones on and Spotify is playing. What are you listening to?
I listen to all sorts of things. I mean, I listen to YouTube. I listen to inspirational speakers on YouTube. I listen to history programs, the history of the Earth, the universe. You know, the Big Bang. What was before the Big Bang? What's happened in the past 13.8 billion years? And that's an extraordinary thing. So I listen to all sorts, and I listen to culture and everything. But I would
Music
probably,
wise, though, music, if it's
yeah,
music.
I was going to say, but if it comes down to music, it would either be it would be a song that would have real meaning for me. There are, I probably never will be on Desert Island Discs, but if I were ever to be on it, picking those 8 tracks would be very, very difficult. But
Mm.
the one track I would pick would be the Beatles song. I'd like to listen to the Beatles song. It would be Let It Be, or the John Lennon wonderful song Imagine, because they are both, and they make me cry when I hear them. I mean, when you hear them sung by a choir, for instance, they're incredible songs because I think they're spiritual songs, particularly Let It Be. I think it's a wonderful song. And I have a particular connection with Let It Be because I can vamp it on the piano. I'm not a pianist by any means at all. But one of my boys is a very good pianist and a singer. In fact, both my boys are very good singers. But I remember teaching Let It Be, or certainly showing the notes to one of my sons when he was about 4, and he picked it up and he played it, and he played it an octave higher and an octave lower, and he went on to read music at university. So I think that's a very great and emotional song for me. I love
Well,
it. So it'd be something like that, but it'd be one of those wonderful songs which has stayed the test of time, and
mm.
it's one of those songs that you can listen to over and over again. You can hear it in different situations, and you can hear it through a choir. You can hear it just played instrumentally, as well as on the piano, and as well as of course, the classic Beatles song with McCartney singing.
Fantastic. Love that. Even those four things have just conjured up a picture for us. So with Jerusalem, Builder's Tea, um, Let It Be, and The Power of Now. There we go. That's lovely. Now we're going to do our trip. Now this is where you're feeling quite pleased with yourself because you've just had a message from a family foundation. And it's a kind of cross-cultural foundation, Arab Jewish family foundation conglomerate. Okay. And they love the fact that you've popped yourself here, and they know about your backstory and all the achievements in filmmaking and your move into public speaking, and they're convinced that some of the conflict in the world is because of a lack of communication skills. Okay. So they'd like to hire you for a year, and they'd like you to travel the world and give lectures on effective communication in with a view to reducing conflict and encouraging peaceful dialogue. Okay. All you have to, I mean, it's a very well-paid trip. All of your admin, professional and personal, is sorted out. You'll be away for a year. Friends and family can come and visit. There's a TV crew following you. There is a book deal in it. You'll be doing a TED talk when you get back, and then a university lecture tour around the world. Does that sound like fun?
Well, that sounds an amazing thing, and well done for putting that in my head as well. It's beautiful. That would be a wonderful Christmas present. Yeah, fantastic.
Yeah.
I'm there. I'm with you. I'm on the tour.
Excellent. Good. We've got it. All you have to do now, having been in Jerusalem, is to decide where you're going to start. You can go to any city in any part of the world. Where's the first place you'd want to go to record this, to give lectures, do workshops, and record the TV series around communicating for peace?
Well, I think it would be America. I would probably go to Washington or New York, but certainly Washington, because at the heart of what's happening at the moment in the world, Washington is very, very important, regardless of your politics around that. But it's very, very important. So I'd go to Washington. I think that was where I would start, because
Okay,
I think that would be the first place.
excellent. So you're on the plane. You turned left on the plane because you're traveling at the expense of this family foundation who want you to be comfortable. The steward brings you a builder's tea and a note from the family foundation. They have a musical challenge for you. They'd like you to limit your musical intake to one very specific type or genre of music for 12 months to the exclusion of all else. In those tortuous circumstances, what genre or type of music would you choose?
It would most definitely be classical.
It's quite broad. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it would be classical because I mean, if you think about Beethoven, Mozart, Handel, all of those incredible composers, and they stand the test of time, of course, as well. And that can be, you know, hugely emotive as well. And also classical music is wonderful. I listen to classical music. I go to classical music concerts, and you can sit there and you can just it washes over you, and that helps me to be in the moment as well. And
Mm,
the incredible talent of people like Mozart,
mm.
it's extraordinary. So it'd definitely be classical.
Classical. Great choice. Um, Now, you get to Washington, and a group of young peace activists and students welcome you at Washington, and they usher you into a beautiful apartment overlooking the the wonders of Washington. And they say, right, settle in, unpack, relax. We're going to come back, and we're going to take you out to dinner. But before that, we're taking you to a dance performance. Now, this is where the magic wand and the time machine come in, because I can put any dance-based performance on a stage in front of you, It could be historical. It could be any dancers, living or not, any dance group or any dance style. What dance-based performance would you really enjoy in those circumstances?
Another great question. These are wonderful questions, Mark, really are. I have always loved tap. I love that precision tap dancing. And when you see really good tap with really good dancers, I think that would be wonderful for me. Irish tap dancing. All my ancestors, I was the first one born in the UK. My parents, their parents, their grandparents, everybody was born in Ireland, in Southern Ireland. Geographically northwest, so just over the border from Derry, in
Yeah.
Donegal, but politically south. So yeah, it would be tap dancing because such an energy to that. I think it would be wonderful, and when it's done well, it's riveting, and you, how on earth did they do that? So that
Yeah.
whole sort of sequence, the Michael Flatley type thing, where Riverdance, that sort of
Yeah. I think
powerful, uh, great
I think
dancing.
it was, when was it? 87, or when was Riverdance in the middle of Eurovision? Um,
I can't remember actually.
Might have
I
been
thought it was
later.
later than that, but
Yeah,
maybe not.
94 perhaps. But
Yeah.
I remember the producer at RTE resigned to go and set up
Mm,
Riverdance shortly after
mm,
that. And I saw an advert in the stage inviting Angels to get involved for £10,000.
mm,
And I didn't have it, but I would have done.
mm.
I gather that if you'd put £10,000 in Riverdance in 1994, you'd have taken out over £100,000 a year ever since.
Wow, that's extraordinary. And what
Yeah.
a great thing it
Oh, and
is.
I know exactly why it works. I worked this out. I was chatting to my wife at the time when we watched it. Nobody can remember who won that year, but they'll remember that. And it's all, when it's a solo performance, you can't tell if they're getting it right.
Mm,
But when 60 dancers are all doing exactly the same thing at exactly the same time, they're all getting it right. That kind of compounded talent is there, you know.
yeah.
I found that extraordinarily moving. I've got Irish heritage as well, so there's something in there was something in me that tick that sort of grabbed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, also as well, my mother, she used to do Irish dancing when she was a little girl. She told me, and and sometimes she used to just stand up in the middle of the kitchen floor and do a little bit of tapping and stuff. So it brings me back, to my childhood where you see this, my mum just doing it, and it was wonderful to see.
Yeah, wonderful. Okay, that's on. That's Michael Flatley and Jill Butler, June Butler. I can't. I remember I went to a Prince's Trust Gala event, and we managed to see them do it again, which was great. A few years after.
Mm,
Excellent. Now, your friends in Washington are taking you out to dinner, and you
mm,
get to choose the national cuisine.
mm.
What do we got?
Wow. So the I've always loved Thai food. So it'd probably be Thai, I think. I'm a vegetarian, so it'd be I've been to Thailand, of course, and it's wonderful. And when you get a really good Thai restaurant, that's the
Mm.
thing. So I'd probably go for Thai. It would have been a toss up 10 years ago. Probably would have been a toss up between Indian and Thai, but I think Thai now, or Thai, Vietnamese, that sort of food I
Okay,
very much like. So
perfect.
Thai, I'll go for Thai.
Okay. Now, in our whistle stop tour at the start of your year, we're going again. Where are we going from Washington? We can go to any city in the world.
It would, I would say it would probably be New York's a hop, skip, and a jump. So if I'm doing this tour talking about world peace and bringing the three Abrahamic religions together for
Mm.
peace, and I'd probably go to New York next.
Okay. So it's sport, it's Saturday and it's sport day. Okay. Now we've got dressage, we've got synchronized swimming, we've got breakdancing in the Olympics. Some sport is considered performance art. What sport can I put in front of you? It doesn't have to be American. what sporting event would you love to watch, past or present?
Well, for me, it's got to be football, or as the Americans call it, soccer. I mean,
Mhm.
it's a fantastic game. And I love watching it. Obviously, I'm an England supporter. We'll be in the World Cup in 2026 in America, of all places, and it would be that. And but on a Premier League, uh, I support in the Premier League. I support Liverpool. So I was born up there. So I support Liverpool. So it would be a soccer match, a football match. That's what I would like to be
Okay.
at.
I think it might be where are we? We're in New York, yeah. But I think yeah, we'll do the Merseyside derby in New York. Yeah,
Yes. Yeah, the famous Merseyside derby between Liverpool and Everton. Yeah,
yes,
that would be amazing.
wouldn't it? Right, let's buzz again from New York. Where are we going now?
Um, I think we would go somewhere like somewhere in Europe. Berlin.
Love Berlin. I
I love Berlin. I've been many times, and it's got such history. When you fly into Berlin, you go into Berlin for the first time, you feel that history there.
mm,
So Berlin's always. I really enjoy going to Berlin. So, but right now, there, that's where I would go next.
okay, excellent. Now, in Berlin, in our fantasy world here, there is a new digitally enhanced art gallery at which you put on virtual reality headsets and step into the work of a famous visual artist. It's unlike these immersive shows where it's projected. You're in it, okay? 360 degrees, three-dimensional. You can see in 3 dimensions what the artist could only show us in two. It might be animated, there might be sound. If you could step into the work of a famous visual artist, whose work, living or not, obviously, whose work would you like to step into and walk around in?
Um, well, the first person that came to mind was Picasso because he was just extraordinary. But actually, I think I know we think of David Bowie as a musician. And I met David Bowie once, which was extraordinary. It was right at the beginning of his career. And I happened to run into him in Liverpool, of all places. But he was an incredible visual artist, Bowie. So I love David Bowie. I love his songs. I love the way he was, everything about. Had all the albums. I still listen to Bowie. I think he's incredible. Um, but also, as an artist, there's something about him, and I think getting him immersed in his work and sadly he died too young.
Mm,
What he could have produced, so it would be taken into a 3D visual world of Bowie.
yeah, I've just shared my screen with some of his work, so that I had no idea. I mean, that, for example,
Yeah, he did some incredible things. Could you imagine being sort of brought into David's world? It's a time machine. You can go back digitally. You
yeah,
can experience what went on in his head. He was an incredible talent, I
yeah.
thought. I mean,
Well,
look at that. Just look at the work there.
yeah, exactly. So there we go. Wonderful. A friend of mine traveled with David Bowie in the early 70s and took a camera, Jeff McCormack, and he's got some beautiful images of them on tour in Russia and strange places. Fantastic. Excellent. Now I'm going to whisk you back to London for a week off. You and I are going out together every night of the week. We're going out Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and we're going to do a historic pop or rock concert. We're going to do a theatre play. We're going to do a West End or Broadway musical first night, and we're going to do an opera, and we're going to the movies. Right, and between us, we can decide what we do. We'll have to be quick. So, is there a concert that you attended that you'd love to go back to?
Oh, I've been to some incredible concerts. I saw David Bowie. I've seen Rolling Stones. I've seen U2, I've seen Elton John, Rod Stewart, all of those people. So I can't. I never saw the Beatles. I never
Okay.
saw the Beatles. Of course, I saw Paul McCartney in Wings, but I never
Mm,
saw the Beatles. So wouldn't that be just wonderful? I love John Lennon. I love the Beatles. They're terrific. But John Lennon was incredible. John and Paul were incredible writers, and John, of course, sadly got killed in New York when he was 40, and that was a tragedy. Think of the music that John could have produced had that
mm.
not happened to him. So being transported back where I could go and see the Beatles, not necessarily in their heyday when there was tens of thousands of screaming girls at the airport, but maybe a concert of theirs would have been an incredible thing to witness, I
Yeah.
think.
We won't put you at the Shea Stadium because you won't hear a thing. But yeah, that's a great one. Excellent. Okay, my missed opportunity was Bob Marley, 1979.
Hmm.
I could have gone and didn't, and he died in 81. Now a play, theatre play. We're in London, so of course we've got the Globe if you fancy some Shakespeare. But um, what play would you like to watch?
Well, it's funny you should say fancy some Shakespeare. I love Shakespeare. I think Shakespeare was a genius. And of course, there are all sorts of things that, was Shakespeare really a man? Was he, from royalty? I like to think of him, he was a bloke from Stratford upon Avon who was in touch with something. And is Shakespeare poetry or is it drama? Is it prose? It's everything. When you get into Shakespeare, the characters, the human emotions are the same now as they were when he wrote plays. And when you see a really good Shakespeare play, it completely and utterly moves you. All of the big ones that we know, Macbeth, King Lear, Romeo and Juliet, the histories, Henry IV Part One, Henry IV Part Two, Othello, um, Hamlet, of course.
Hmm.
Seeing a really good Shakespeare play can have an incredible effect on somebody. And sometimes people think, oh, the language, I don't understand what they're saying. But in a way, if it's done well, it's directed well, it's delivered well by the actors, it has resonance today that we can see the human condition and all of the things that go with it, the envy, the jealousy, the mistrust, the ambition, what people will go to. I mean, you often hear, when politicians fall from grace, oh, it was Shakespearean, it was tragedy. And you see that writ large, you see it played out on the world stage because those same human emotions that Shakespeare brilliantly put into his work are as relevant today as the day he wrote them. So for me, it would be one of the big classic Shakespeare plays to go and see that at the Royal Shakespeare Company. What better place to go and see it?
Yeah, fantastic. I love that. Now, Wednesday is musical night. We can go to a first performance if we wish. What are we going to go and see? Broadway or West End?
Oh, wow. Um, when a musical is good, I'm thinking something like The Book of Mormon, which was quite controversial when it came out. I went to see it with my family, absolutely loved it. It was wonderful. So seeing a really good musical, where, and of course, the ABBA, we went to see the ABBA, ABBA experience. I mean, look at those songs, they are incredible songs. I mean, they're brilliant. And that was beautifully done as well. So it'd be, I mean, I would probably go and see, but if I had to choose between West End or Broadway, I'd probably go and see a Broadway musical because when we think of musicals, we think about Broadway as well and those fantastic songwriters and those fantastic songs. So I'd probably go and see a Broadway musical, something big and lavish and loud and just get everybody moving because they're wonderful.
42nd Street, I think, to go.
42nd Street would be great, yeah.
There we go.
Um, Yeah, 42nd Street on 42nd Street.
Yeah. Oh, wouldn't that be great? Yes. Um, and then where are we? Thursday is opera night. Are you an opera buff, John?
No, the straight answer is no. I've been to one opera, um, but seeing an opera at the Royal Opera House would be great. Um, I don't know what it would be. I'm not an opera. Uh,
I think you'd particularly the one thing I love about opera is that it brings all of those art forms together.
mm, mm,
You've got music, you've got dance, you've got
yeah,
acting, you've got scenery, which is art. When
yeah.
it all comes together, it's extremely powerful. So I think we'd probably do Tosca at the Puccini's Tosca at the Royal Opera House. That would be, I
Yeah,
think, would
well,
be.
that would be good. I've been to the Royal Opera House once to see an opera, but
Mm,
I think I would going now. I think being older and I don't know, I probably enjoy it more. Just go to see that huge, like you say, spectacle with all the art forms
yeah.
coming together. Royal Opera House, beautiful building. That would be.
Mm,
I'll settle for that.
okay. Now I'm going to fly us to the Sphere in Las Vegas. Have you seen it?
No.
It's an enormous 300-degree screen. Okay. Let me show you. Um, the Sphere. It's in Las Vegas. Here are the images. Hold on. You'll love this.
Yeah, of course. That is amazing, isn't it? Something.
That's the inside.
Yeah. Wow.
So you're almost tipping back on your uh on there. Yeah, I mean it's incredible. Apparently, I've not been. I'm looking. I want to, and they that's what it looks like on the outside. They project onto the outside of it when they're as well. What film would you like to watch in that on that screen?
Wow. So many instantly come to mind. Kubrick's 2001 Space Oddity,
Odyssey, yeah,
Oddity would be Space Oddity and Odyssey.
yeah,
Um, Something like that would be mi- quite mind-blowing to see it on there because
mm,
it's an incredible film and it's also a very unsettling film
mm,
as well. So that would be something. I love Gladiator. That is an incredible film.
mm.
Works incredibly well. So that would be an amazing film to see there.
It would.
Um, I mean, there's so many fantastic films that would look amazing. I mean, if I look at that sphere, I'm immediately sort of thinking something futuristic because it seems to call out for that. The
Yeah.
Terminators, particularly Terminator 2, is an
Mm,
amazing film. But
mm,
also, having a film there's a beautiful film called Life is Beautiful. So having an emotional film as well on a huge screen would be very powerful. Something that's going to impact the human condition, the human soul, make us think about ourselves, make us think about our fellow people around us, human beings. And
mm,
we have such a great capacity as human beings for incredible good, but also on the flip side, for incredible evil of doing things that are not right. And that's driven by, for want of a better expression, defects of character, greed, envy, jealousy, all of the stuff that Shakespeare
mm.
beautifully wrote about. Um, but yeah, I want to think and believe, even though at this moment in time, where we are on the planet and where we are in our history, our human history, we can look at it as bleak, and you can look at the conflicts that are going on in the world and the advent of AI and how fast that has come on suddenly. Although people have been talking about it for years, but we didn't really know what it was, and now it's in our lives every day on computers, and we can look at the world as being a dark, dangerous, and bleak place. But somehow, I want to look at the world as a human being where we can look at the light, we can look at the goodness in the world, we can look at that human connection, how we as individuals can change the world. And instead of going down that route that's going to lead to ultimately death and destruction, not of the planet, because the planet's going to remain here, but of us as a species and
Mm.
of what we have grown to love and value. But we go down this road where we see each other in a different light. Now, that might seem like utopia and fantasy because they know people are always going to, fight each other, and that is true. But if people can see other people in a different light, as we are human beings, and the beauty about film, because we talked about film, the beauty about film, a man or a woman in Australia can watch a film and can have the same emotional impact as a man and woman in Afghanistan, in Egypt, in London, in Paris, in America. They may never have visited that particular culture, but that human connection, that human connection on an emotional level, on a
Mm.
soulful level, can really have an effect. I mean, films can change the way that people, it can change your perception, my perception, our perception as human beings about other people. And I think the power of that could be incredible. So I would have, I would, I'd have to think through more about a particular film. Drama appeals to me, and that human connection that changes the attitude of people. You may think he is like that, she is like that, they are like that, but you see it from a different perspective, and actually, they're just the same as me and you. There's that
Mm.
connection. So having something on that screen that would uh, embody that would be a wonderful thing that everybody looks at, everybody sees.
Fantastic choices. Love that. Now we're nearly there. This has been great, John. Thank you so much. I'm going to send you off to complete this wonderful year that we've planned for you. But before I do, I'm going to give you what I call the hero lunch. You can, we've picked a beautiful Thai restaurant in London. I booked it for 2 hours. You can invite anyone you like, living or not, historical or present day, famous or otherwise, um, for lunch, and they will come. Who would you invite?
One person or a group of people?
One person.
That is such that is such a tough choice. Several people instantly came to mind, whose names I won't say, flashed before me,
Yeah.
who are living, who have passed on. But the answer for me, and this is it's gonna sound contradictory, but it's not a religious choice. The person I'm going to have lunch with me in a Thai restaurant in London is not a religious choice, but it's Jesus.
A
Now that
historical choice. There we go.
historical choice, yeah, but it's not Jesus in a religious sense. It's Jesus the man. Now, I say that for a number of reasons. If we think about it, Christianity has had an incredible effect on the world from over 2,000 years ago, 2,000 years ago. And I think sitting down with Jesus and having a conversation with him would be an incredible thing. Now, I've studied Christianity, not from a university point of view, but I've read lots of books, etc. And it's a fascinating story. What was he really like? He was Jewish. He railed against the status quo at the time. He was crucified. I don't think there's any doubt that a man called Jesus lived. There's no doubt about that, I think. But I would like to get to know him and what he thought. And of course, those missing years, the so-called missing years of Christ, from the age of 12 till he was 30. What happened? Where did he go? Did he go to the East? Was he involved in some sort of mysticism? What was it about him? Because there's not very little evidence, there's lots of speculation that he went east, he went to India or somewhere like that, and studied, and then came back to the Middle East. And did that have an effect on him and what he thought? So and what he taught rather. So I think that would be the person. Um, I would have lunch with or dinner with in a
Love
Thai
that.
restaurant in London. And I
Now,
don't mean that, and I really don't mean that in any sort of religious way. Even though I was brought up a Christian and Catholic, I have my own, I have my own belief, which I think we're all connected, regardless of whether you're Jewish, whether you're Muslim, whether you're Christian, whether you're Hindu, Sikh, whether you're an agnostic or an atheist. There's a human connection. And I think so for me, it's not, I emphasize again, it's not about religion, I'd sit with Jesus, just such an interesting historical figure. I would like to sit with him and get to know him and find out about him. And I don't just, I'll finish on this. I don't believe Christ was his second name. He was Jesus. Jesus of Nazareth. I don't know what his second name was. He may not have had a second name. He just called Jesus of Nazareth. And Christ is about the spiritual Christ, the cosmic Christ, the universal Christ, of which we are all part, I believe. And that's just something I feel. I don't have any evidence for that. Couldn't prove that in a court of law. But I feel that and that's a human connection, which is partly why I'm drawn to that film that I've developed and want to make as a
mm,
director about that coming together for the common good for humanity. So
mm,
I'd be sitting in a restaurant, Thai restaurant, having dinner with Jesus in the middle of London.
brilliant. Love it. John, thank you so much. This has been a delight sharing your fantasy cultural year. I hope you've enjoyed it. The wherever this appears, there'll be a profile about you with contact details and everything. So thanks again for being one of our full members. It's very much appreciated. I think we're going to have to book you to do a 10-minute talk next year for our guests on 5 things you can do tomorrow to improve your public speaking. That would be great. Have you enjoyed it?
Yeah, it's been terrific actually, and I didn't want to know what the questions were. I didn't look at any of the previous ones. I just thought, just go with it, be in the moment, and whatever. And you threw some incredible things that have got my mind whizzing. I'll probably look back and go, oh, I should have said this, should have said that. But I said what I said, and what I said is the right thing. But it's been wonderful. I thought it's a fantastic technique, for want of a better word, for you to use, and it's brilliant because it also gets you instantly thinking. You have to think on your feet.
And in the present.
Stay in the present, in the moment. Absolutely. No, it's been wonderful, Mark. Thank you so much.
John, thank you very, very much. See you again soon.
Yeah.